Do you believe you have a chance of beating Donald Trump in the primary? And what do you add to the equation that Donald Trump doesn't, which would be why people would pick you over Donald Trump in a head-to-head race?
Yeah, it's a very fair question. So my honest gut instinct is that I will win the primary and then I will win the general election in a landslide on a scale that Ronald Reagan delivered in 1980.
Vivek Ramaswamy? This video is brought to you by TatumStore.com, TatumStore.com. Make sure you get some stuff from the Tatum Store. Hit discount code I'm back. There you go. I'm back. 35% off the entire store. Like and subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell so you get notifications anytime I go live, make a video. You already know what to do. Let's get into this. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm excited to announce to you guys about the interview of Vivek Ramaswamy. I'm getting ready to interview him now, so you make sure you stay tuned. I asked him plenty of questions that people were asking me on social media to have him talk about, limited to only 20 minutes. I'm sure we'll have another interview, but I think you will enjoy this interview thoroughly. And some of you guys who are, and I'm gonna be honest, they were on the Trump train or in between DeSantis and Trump. You may put Vivek Ramaswamy as number one. You might after this interview. Stay tuned. Check out the interview. Comment in the comment section. Let me know how you like it. Do you want me to interview other people? Write all that in the comment section. Let's roll the film. All right, ladies and gentlemen, joining me today is Vivek Ramaswamy. I would argue you are probably one of the highest, or I would say fastest emerging candidates in the presidential race of 2024. And I think that, to be honest, when you look at intelligence and when you look at the American dream and you look at entrepreneurial perspective, I feel like that you're a top tier when it comes to those things. So I want to ask you first off, and I'm sure you get this question 1,000 times, is that, you know, being an entrepreneur, having a very successful business, why do you want to run for president of the United States?
Well, it's a good question. If you had told me a year ago that I would be running for president, I would have said that you were crazy, and it probably sounded about as pleasant as a sharp poke in the eye. But to be honest with you, we actually are enjoying this campaign so far. The reason we're doing it is we're called by a purpose here. When I say we're doing this as a family. I think that we're in the middle of a national identity crisis where people my age and younger, and by the way, I'm the first millennial ever to run for U.S. president as a Republican. I'd be the youngest president ever elected if I were elected. I'm 37. People my age and younger, we are so starved for a cause, for purpose and meaning in our country that we latch on to what we're served. Wokeism, transgenderism, climatism, COVIDism. And I think this also accounts for depression and anxiety and the spread of a mental health epidemic, even drug use across the country. What I think we really need is to fill our hunger with a vision of what it means to be an American. And as somebody who has lived the American dream, my parents came to this country with almost no money. I've gone on to found multi-billion-dollar companies. I have lived that American dream. I want to pass it on to not just my kids, but to their entire generation. And I saw a conservative movement, and what called me into this, I was building a company, Strive. It was the third company I'd actually started. It was doing well, and I was competing with BlackRock and pursuing my own way of having an impact and building a business. What I saw in this field was a Republican Party and a conservative movement that for a long time has been running from something. But I think now is our moment to actually start running to something, to our vision of what it means to be an American. I didn't see anybody else offering that. I felt like I had a vision of what it means to be a citizen of this country. And I'm running this campaign to speak the truth about that and hopefully to lead a national revival on the other side of it.
I love that, man. I have to tell you that you are my wife's favorite. I mean, out of everybody, I think even Donald Trump. But that segues to the next conversation I want to have with you is about Donald Trump, because we all know what Donald Trump did in when he was elected the first time. Obviously, he did not win in 2020. Obviously, that's controversial. I have my opinions about what happened in 2020. However, I think Donald Trump is emerging in the polls as a very strong candidate. He is top by far. And so I want to ask you just directly, do you believe you have a chance of beating Donald Trump in the primary? And what do you add to the equation that Donald Trump doesn't, which would be why people would pick you over Donald Trump in a head-to-head race?
Yeah, it's a very fair question. So My honest gut instinct is that I will win the primary and then I will win the general election in a landslide on a scale that Ronald Reagan delivered in 1980 and that we have not seen since then. And I think that will unite the country and give me a moral mandate to achieve what are some unsparing policy objectives, which I can share with you. I'm about where Trump was in June or July of 2015 and on the rise as an outsider. I'm polling at third in this Republican primary field. So I think we are more than well positioned to win this election. I don't want to see him eliminated from competition, as the federal government now tries to do every day with a new indictment, another day, another indictment. That's not the way I want to see this go. I want to do it by persuading the voters of this country that I am best positioned to take the America First agenda even further than Donald Trump did. I think I will go further. I've talked about using the military to secure the southern border, not just build the wall. I'm not just going to put Betsy DeVos on top of the Department of Education and expect reform. I will shut it down. That's how you actually reform the administrative state, is you actually shut the whole thing down because it's unconstitutional. But the most important part of this, actually, of why I'm in this race, Donald Trump is an excellent America First candidate. He's done outstanding things for the country. I respect him as a president of the United States. But there's something about Trump, may not even be his fault. I think it's not his fault. But he has an effect on about 1/3 of this country that makes them literally psychiatrically ill when he's in office and he speaks. I can't explain it to you, but it's just a fact. It's a fact about our nation. And I care about our country. I do not want to see us march towards a national divorce. And the funny thing is, Brandon, I can't explain this to you. In many of the cases, I'm saying the same things as Trump from a policy perspective, adopting the same policies. In some instances, going even further unapologetically, taking on issues that even Trump was, I would say, a little bit delicate in taking on. I'm not delicate. I'm going further. And yet, for whatever reason, I'm bringing more of the country along with me as I do it. Young people in our campaign, 40% of the donors to us, I have 65,000 plus donors already. 40% are first time ever donors to a Republican candidate or the Republican Party in any way. We're exciting young people. We're bringing them along. We're making them proud to be American. Even many independents, even a few Democrats or one-time Democrats are coming along. That's why I think, look, this election, many people, you're right, do have open debates about what the actual result of the election was, understandably. But that's why I think 2024 cannot be a 50.1 margin election. It needs to be a landslide election. And while I think that Donald Trump and other candidates in this case could defeat Joe Biden, I think I'm the only one that can deliver a landslide and unite this country while also going forward even further with that America First agenda. So that would be my pitch to anybody who voted for Donald Trump, is that I'm one of them. And I think that that's exactly why I'm in this race. And even if you look at our team, right, our state chair in New Hampshire, that's one of the early states. He was one of the early adopters on the Trump train. He was Trump's chair in New Hampshire back in the 2016 race, long before that was a popular campaign to be a part of. And so we're bringing those people along, but that's exactly how we're going to win, is by doing it the America First way.
And I have a couple more things I want to touch base with you, and I'm glad I have you to talk about these things. And I'm glad that I can tell that you are honest in your approach, because some people want to be politicians, right? They're going to tell me what I want to hear. They're going to tell the people what they want to hear. But I believe that I'm hearing genuineness, because some people that are running in kind of in your lane, which means that you are not running opposed to Trump, meaning saying that Trump is a bad devil that never should have been president. He sucks. He ruined our country, and I'm going to make the wrong right. Similar to how DeSantis is running, kind of opposed to Trump. I see you as saying, look, I can do better than, or I am a good alternative to what you see as.
I want to build on his foundation. He laid a great foundation for this country. He deserves, and his legacy deserves to be celebrated. But in many ways, the other thing, we're all human beings, right? I won't be the same person I am 8 years from now that I am today. Just as Trump today isn't the same person he was 8 years ago, because we're human, right? He struck the swamp struck back. I've got fresh legs. I'm an outsider. I can go further. And at least so far, there is no Vivek Ramaswamy derangement syndrome for 30% of this country. And I want to take advantage of that. because all of us, including Trump, we're in this for the country. And so the question is, how do we take that agenda to the next level? That's truly the way I look at this, and it's the way we're running this campaign.
And Vivek, when it comes to the election, right? And I don't want to get too deep in it because you know how these things go. However, a lot of people have questions about the election. A lot of people are concerned. A lot of people think that we will never win another election because of what happened in 2020 and the plans that they have moving forward. What do you think what is your perspective on when you are actually on the ballot 2024 as the general, you won the primary, you're now in the general. What do you think we will get a fair shake? Do you think that you will get a fair shake? And I guess the bigger question is this: why would you get a better shake, or why do you think that they wouldn't do the same that they've done to Trump?
I think they will, actually, is the short answer. The only difference is, just on the principle of it, it has to be a landslide underlying margin. And a landslide election minus some shenanigans is still a landslide, or at least a moral mandate election. That's what it has to be. This has to be a Reagan 1980 style margin. And why do I think I'm going to be able to deliver it? I don't even talk about Republicans and Democrats on the campaign trail. I talk about whether you are pro-American. Do you believe in the ideals this country was founded on? Are you willing to fight for those ideals? Are you willing to sacrifice for those ideals? Or are you, and I think it exists in this country, are you fundamentally anti-American? Do you wish to apologize for a nation founded on these ideals? I think the current vice president of the United States, and to some extent the president, embody that. But my point is, this is not about Republicans and Democrats. This is about whether we're on the same team in the pro-American movement. And when I talk about it that way, I go to the south side of Chicago. We bring people along with us. I went to Kensington in the middle of Philadelphia. We bring people along with us. I go to college campuses, including even liberal college campuses across this country. We're bringing young people along with us in a way that no other candidate, I would say, including Trump, are actually successfully doing. That's what we will require in order for this to be A, a successful election, and B, for us to have the moral mandate to actually govern with authority. And that's why I'm in the race. And so has big tech locked one of my accounts already? Yes, they have. My LinkedIn account was locked because I made statements that they said violated their policies. I'm not making this up. On hate speech, misinformation, and violence, for making statements about the climate agenda and its relationship to the ESG movement. Well, my approach is a little bit different. What did I do? I'm grounded in facts, right? We're not getting into policy in this discussion you and I are having, but if you've seen me get into policy, I'm pretty tightly tied to the facts, and nobody's going to dispute me on my own terms for something I've actually chosen to put out there. So we put out the facts. I said, point out what's false. They couldn't. I publicly published the emails where they said it violated their policies. They were so embarrassed by the facts, they started getting media inquiries that they actually then retreated and said, oh, no, we apologize. That was an error, as though it was some technical glitch. It was not. But that's what I do. I go to the other side's turf, and whether it's Don Lemon at CNN or Chuck Todd at Meet the Press, neither of whom is in their respective seats anymore, I show up on the other side's home turf. We win on the merits, and we will be grounded on principles and moral authority. And I think we go further when we're grounded unapologetically on principle rather than just driven by vengeance and grievance. And there are good reasons to be aggrieved. But if we're going to move forward as a country, we got to do it based on principle. And I come back to that point. I will take our agenda, the America First agenda, even further than Trump did. I will take on issues, sacred cows that he was told not to touch, like affirmative action, or other issues where I'm going far further than he did. But I genuinely believe we will unite the country, at least most of the country. I think that's the best we can ask. 80% of this country, we will unite in the process. And that will make sure that even a landslide minus some aberrations will still be a decisive electoral margin.
Vivek, do you think that, and this is a question that, outside of politics, because just because you're running for office don't mean that you are not observing the things that we all are observing. Do you think that Ron DeSantis is a bought and paid for politician? Meaning that there's a lot of things that he say and a lot of things that he does that makes him an incredible governor in Florida, at least from the regular person's point of view. There may be some nuances in between that we may not know about, but do you think that he is a formidable candidate? Because right now, I think it's only you three right? I'm just going to be honest. Nobody else have a chance. I mean, most of them are wet napkins. They don't have any gravitas. So out of, we've already talked about Trump a little bit, but I want to talk a little bit about DeSantis. I mean, do you think that he's a formidable opponent, or do you think he is probably or somewhat been bought and paid for as a candidate for people to oppose Trump?
I think pretty soon it's going to be down to me and Trump in this election. I think that's going to be the relevant choice that we face. I do think by and large, he's been a quite good governor. There's, some things you can always pick at in somebody's record, but by and large, I think he has been a good governor in the state of Florida, taking Kristi Noem's vision, but implementing it at a large scale of a larger scale state in Florida. He's taken a lot of the concepts I developed in Woke Inc. and tried to translate those into action in Florida as well. So I give him credit for being a good executor in the state of Florida. But when it comes to the country, you have to be able to set a vision that is independent, that is unapologetic about what we're running to as a nation. And it's not his fault. So this isn't a specific comment to DeSantis. I think it applies to any career professional politician. The mother's milk is the donor class. There's no doubt about it, right? The super PAC complex. Personally, I think super PACs are destructive for the American electoral process, and I think Republicans should embrace that message. Trump came in as an outsider in 2015, and I'm coming as the outsider now. I think our party will and should be the party that regularly puts the outsider in the White House. Somebody who's a product of that donor industrial complex is not going to be able to have the actual spine to cut the cord from China if that's what's going to be required, and I think it is, to actually shut down the administrative state, which I think is actually going to be required. And so I think that that's something that if you're dependent on the donor class, and I don't want to go into specific examples on DeSantis. I mean, we could if you want, but I think it applies to most professional career politicians. They're beholden to the people who fund them. And to me, I've lost many large donors because of the things I've said. And you know what it cost me? It's cost me already over $15 million of my hard-earned money that I've already had to put into this campaign. But such is the price of independence. Such is the price of actual freedom to say what you want. That was Trump in 2015. That's me this time around. And I expect before very long, it will be down to me and Donald Trump in this race. And the question will be, who can take our America First agenda even further? And I say that as somebody who deeply respects what Donald Trump did for this country. And I think we need to celebrate those accomplishments while we then build on them and take it to the next level.
I love that. And I love the fact that you're not delusional in this, because some people get delusional. They're like, they want to oppose Donald Trump as a juggernaut. And I think you have to give credit where credit is due and critique where critique is necessary. Two things that I want to ask you, because age and religion are two things that I think maybe give pause to some people, right? You're 37 years old, probably you're almost 38. We're young. I'm 36. Yeah. We're young. A person would say, what experience does a 30-something-year-old man have if you're going to be running, the entire country and dealing with foreign relations? And then also, that's the first question.
Yep.
How do you overcome that perspective of age? And then the second question is religion, because most of I would say Trump supporters are conservative Christians.
Yep.
How do you, being Hindu, affect or have no effect on the Judeo-Christian perspective from the conservative side? So the age and the religion are two questions I want to ask you about.
Which one do you want me to go first on?
Let's go with religion first, and then we'll do age.
Yeah. And I think that's in many ways the more fundamental one, which I think is a legitimate question for people who don't know me to ask. And so what do I say? I'll speak the truth. I think that this country was indeed founded on Judeo-Christian principles, and we should not apologize for that fact. I'm actually vocal about it. I'm a big believer in history. I've studied our nation's history. I've studied the Bible. I went to Christian school for high school. This nation is absolutely founded on Judeo-Christian values. I share those values deeply in common. I am a Hindu. I was raised in a Hindu household. We raised our two sons in the same faith-based tradition. But it's the same values that ground us. The belief that God put us here for a purpose, that there is a one true God, that we're united, we're equal. Brandon, not because some guy wrote it in a secular document. We're equal, as we say in the Christian tradition, because we're made in the image of God. The tradition I was raised in, we say we're equal because God resides in each of us. I believe it. The thing that gives me my freedom, even in a presidential campaign, in moments of stress, what do I remind myself of? It's not being done by us. It is being done through us. We were put here for a reason, for a higher purpose, that we have to make that sacrifice for that higher purpose. To me, that's one of the most powerful threads through the entire Bible. You have God asked Abraham to sacrifice his son Isaac. He didn't make him follow through with that sacrifice. But then in the New Testament, God actually sacrificed his son for the people who needed that sacrifice in order to believe in God. That's exactly the tradition of sacrifice and duty. Hinduism is founded on that same tradition of following your duty. And I think America is founded on the concept of being a constitutional republic, not just a democracy, where citizens have duties to their country too, something we've forgotten. And so I live my life according to a standard. We brought our two sons into this world. The standard I want you to hold me to as your next president, if you all put me there, is that I want to be able to look my two sons in the eye just like everybody else hopefully can look their kids in the eye and say, I want you to grow up and be like him. Whoever that is in the White House, that's the standard I want you to hold me to. And you know what? I think that when it comes to advancing the interests of those who are Christians, those who are Jews, those who are Hindus, those who are people of faith in this country, religious liberty is under assault in our country. I am an unapologetic defender of religious liberty. I am unapologetically pro-life in this country. In some ways, though, because I'm young, and this ties to the age question, but also because, frankly, I wasn't raised in a Christian household, I can defend those values without somebody calling me a Christian nationalist. And I think that actually gives me more liberty and latitude to do it. And speaking of the age question, that also is what allows me to reach the next generation. You know, my wife and I, we're making family and faith and patriotism and hard work. We're making those concepts cool again. I don't know if you saw some of that video footage from that party that we had after the Turning Point event that I spoke at over the weekend. I mean, it was moving to me to see thousands of young Americans. I mean, they were mobbing us. It feels like we're at a concert. I'm a rock star, but I'm not talking about it because of sex, drugs, and alcohol. I'm talking about faith, family, and what it means to be a citizen of this country. Those are cool concepts, right? That's what we have to pass on to the next generation because those are inherently concepts that young people are starved for and hungry for. And as a young person, I think I am best positioned of anybody in this race in either party to make young Americans proud to be citizens of this country again. I am 37. It's a fair question to ask. Yes, what have I accomplished? Well, I hope my best accomplishments and my best contributions to this country are still ahead of me. But I haven't been sitting around for the last couple of decades either. I've built multi-billion-dollar businesses, employed thousands of people, developed medicines, 5 of which are FDA-approved products today. In the last couple of years, I've written 3 books. They're my own books, not somebody else's. One of them was one of the top New York Times bestsellers of the last several years, exposing the woke industrial complex in America. I did it all while following my faith, getting married to my lovely wife, Apurva. She's lived her American dream. She's a successful throat surgeon at Ohio State. You wouldn't know it if you saw her on the campaign trail with our 2 sons. That's the American dream to me. It's not just about green pieces of paper. It's about living our conviction and our purpose as citizens. And I think that helps set an example of what's possible. Do I have all the experiences that Trump has had in being the US president? No, of course I don't have those experiences. But I do have fresh legs. I have energy. I'm not yet jaded and cynical. I truly believe and hope that just as my best days, I hope, are ahead of me as an individual, I truly believe that our best days as a country are still ahead of us too. And I think it might take a young person to see it that way, that we're not a nation in decline. I'm not an individual in decline. I think our nation is still in our ascent, in the early stages of our ascent, on our way to a mountaintop that's still yet ahead of us. Maybe I'm at base camp in my journey as an American. I hope that we're just as base camp in our journey as Americans, as a nation. And you know what? It's going to be up to the people of this country to decide. It's my job to tell you who I am, what I stand for, and what I believe. It's up to the voters of this country to decide if that's what they want. But I promise you I'll do my part in this campaign. The voters will do theirs. And if they put me in that office, I think when I leave office in January 2033, we will absolutely have gotten done the few things that I'll tell you we'll get done. Shut down the administrative state, declare independence from China, grow the economy, make the next generation proud of being American. That much I'm confident I can do, even though I'm just 37. And if the people agree with me, I'll be their next president.
I love that. I know we're short on time. I
Yeah.
just got some yes or no questions to ask you.
Okay.
I think about 3 yes or no questions. You had answered before, but I want people to be very clear about this. Are you pro-life or pro-choice?
Pro-life.
Okay. And I know it's not yes or no, it's kind of alternative, but some of them
I'm keeping it tight, unapologetically pro-life.
Yes. And what about the Second Amendment? Are you pro-Second Amendment, or do you think we should ban AR-15s?
I am a Second Amendment hardliner, and you can watch my speech at the NRA. I think it was a speech like they haven't had before on the history, but that'll give you a sense of where I get my conviction on the Second Amendment.
The Ukraine war, are you pro or against it? Just real quickly, what are your thoughts on that?
End it, do a peace treaty. And what I've said is we can end the Ukraine war on terms that also bring Russia apart from China. End the China-Russia alliance and use ending the Ukraine war as our way to do it.
All right, love it, Vivek. I know you got a lot of things to do. You're a very busy man. I'm not gonna lie, man. You have it convinced me, and you have been an incredible factor in helping me decide, who's emerging as the top person running in this election. Man, I have to say, man, you and I are both in our 30s, in our late 30s, but I have to say it's very inspiring to see a becoming young man who's doing a lot of great things. So I appreciate you, Vivek. Where can people go to donate to you and support you in your race for president?
Vivek2024.com, VIVEK 2024.com. If you want to give $1, give $1. If you just want to volunteer, just sign up and volunteer. But we're going to need everybody to see this through. It's a team sport in reviving our country. And so I'd be grateful for it. And tell your wife thank you as well. Those were kind comments at the beginning. So I appreciate that, Brendan.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming on, man. God bless you. Good luck on your campaign, man. And I'll see you soon.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.